as most of you know, I have a good habit of being really black and white and quite open about what's automatic in my brain wiring in a conversation. And I have to say, so today we're talking with Fred, who's the founder of Finder, and I am going to give him a bit of a plug in a minute. But before we do, I just want to let you know, it was a bit same as me, you know, when I got an email saying that I was on the top 20 LinkedIn voices this year, my first reaction was, oh my God, I think they've made a big mistake. You know, I thought, well, you know, I didn't have the following. I had all the negative scarcity thoughts around why, you know, that was not the case, right? And then I decided, well, I'm just going to now make sure that we can get behind the scenes and find out from the other top 20, you know, what was the year like for them? What was at the source of it? You know, what are they up to? What's, you know, like that. And so I reached out to Fred. Anyway, God bless him. Fred turned around and said, yes. And in the second he said, yes, my automatic scarcity brain went, holy shit. What the heck am I going to do? What am I going to start to talk about with somebody who's created a multi-million-dollar empire with Finder and his innovation and his intelligence? And I was like, holy crap. Now, I want to deal with this straight up because, you know, we human beings have a tendency to put other people on a pedestal, which in doing so, they absolutely do deserve it. Let me just say that for number one. Absolutely deserve it, considering what Fred's accomplished, and what he's accomplished is by no means is just absolutely extraordinary. But the thing that gets missed when we do that is that we're not actually stopping and saying, you know, look, well done, because to do what you did must take a lot. And so I'm going to start from that place and say thanks mostly to Fred for joining me today, because I'm really excited to talk with him about what it really has taken, you know, for him, and the thing that's he's passionate about, and what gets him to keep going in the face of all the stress and that it does take to run a business. And so, Fred, I'm going to start with just highlighting some of the things that just so we can create who you are in the world for people. And then we're going to get into your stuff about your story. So Fred, oh my God, the list of accomplishments, crikey. So we're going to start with the fact that he was Top Voices of Australia this year, AFR's youngest list, rich list 2019 and 2020, Entrepreneur of the Year for Blockchain Australia Industry Awards. Blockchain, I'm interested about that because, again, something I have no clue about. Blockchain Australia Fellow 2019, 3 prestigious awards in 2017, professional services acknowledgements by Ernst & Young, Australian National winner of the services category, and ADMR Australian Young Direct Marketer of the Year in 2006. I mean, where does it, you know, starting at just the age of 23. Now, Finder, which is what Fred has co-founded, is a global personal finance comparison site, and it's now worth over $300 million, attracts 10 million visitors every month. He has over 400 staff across 6 offices and 80 different countries. I mean, Fred, really, congratulations. I mean, just absolutely extraordinary in terms of what you've accomplished.
That's very, very, very kind introduction, Kylie, and as much as everyone I think you're connecting with in feeling that level of, you know, putting people on a pedestal and things like that. I think maybe I can share as well and be vulnerable and submit that maybe I also feel maybe I've only just, you know, started and I haven't really done that much. So, you know, I think there's probably an internal voice that I need to work on there. But I think, you know, I think it's just a lot of persistence, a lot of creativity in dealing with difficult challenges and obstacles along the way that makes it look like, you know, a nice straight line, but actually, yeah, there's many moments of exhilaration and failure and winning, and all wrapped into a nice little bow that leads to the, you know, that history that you're describing to everyone.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you brought that up. So let's talk more about it, hey? So it says here that you did start, the journey kind of started around 23. Would that be a fair thing to say, or would you say it even started earlier?
Well, I started building websites when I was 20 at university in my college room with one of my mates, and we were we were just hacking websites together and selling them. I didn't really think much of. I just thought that was cool, and it was better than. I used to answer phones in a Pizza Hut call center, so it was better than that. And I learned about the internet, and the internet was cool. It wasn't as cool as it is. It's probably much cooler now, but it was really early, and it was very rough, and there was no WordPress, and there was no CMSs, there was no templates, none of that existed. It was just you had to roll your own, which is really fun and innovative, and I love those moments in time. So I was in my flow in that period, and I just as a kid I didn't like I don't know, I didn't set up all these businesses and that stuff. Every now and then I do a little hustle at school. I'd find something everyone wanted and buy it cheap and sell it to everyone. But, I used to climb trees and ride bikes and skateboards. And I was just a very curious individual. I just wanted to just go and explore the world. So, I don't think there was, I don't think being an entrepreneur when I was a kid wasn't really a thing. It wasn't, well, it was, but no, it wasn't as cool as it is today. But I just, I did a terrible job of being a good employee. I just know I wouldn't hire myself, like, personally. He's not a good guy to hire. I remember I went to a job interview once, and the guy asked me, "Oh, what do you want to do, in 5 years' time?" I said, "Well, I'd love to sit sort of probably behind a desk and ask young kids really dumb questions, and that's my job as well." And that didn't go down terribly well. I didn't get the job.
Just to put it into context, so I do get it. So when you were 20, what are we talking about? What year was that?
It's like 01.
01, right.
2001.
Yeah, right. Yeah, very early days in the .com world, right?
Yeah, really, Hotmail just became a thing.
Right.
And there's no Gmail, no Facebook, no Instagram, no hashtags, no iPhones, no TikTok, no YouTube was not a thing at all. There's no YouTube. So we used to, download music files and send them to each other. So we were sharing with our friends, if you know what I mean. So sort of Napster days, and I think it's just the raw internet. We were just in the raw world of the internet, and Google was loitering around, but it wasn't like the only place to go. You'd still use other search engines as well, which is, before they became the monopoly.
Mm-hmm. So who managed to finally give you a job? What was your first job?
I actually didn't get a job. I just started a company.
So were you at uni? So what you were? Yeah, right. So while you were at uni, you started something.
Yeah, and we just started selling websites and helping people, get to the top of Google. Search engine optimization, it was called back then. And that was a new thing. That was a very new frontier, very new thing to consider, to even do and to work out. No one had figured that out. Even today, it's tough to figure out, right? I think a lot of it comes down to I was just very curious. Just, I'd find people's problems, and I tend to go and try and figure out how to solve them and see if that leads to anything.
All right, then. Well, let's jump to the moment where let's just hone in on the creation of Finder, right? Was there a discovery and insight, because I'm reminded of a scientist, right? You know how a scientist gets into a lab, and because you're talking about being curious, and certainly there was got to a point where you were curious and curious and curious, and that curious kind of turned into something. Like, at what point did it turn into something that you kind of went, oh my God, I'm onto something here? Was there a thing?
Well, and this is, I don't know if this is the best energy to start a company on. But it's a story, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to rank number 1 in Google for credit card, just like for the fun of it, like literally for the fun of it.
Right.
I thought that'd be a really cool challenge, like a really hard keyword, one of the hardest on the internet, and is it possible? And I just set out on this journey to go and do it. And, we built this website, Credit Card Finder back then. And Credit Card Finder just came from, I just went, back then exact match domain names were a big deal where, you put the keyword in your domain name. So, I basically downloaded the keyword list of credit cards and I went credit card, not available, creditcard.com, not available, credit card comparison, nope. And went down and number 6 was Credit Card Finder. I went, yep, that's available, register. Okay, that's the domain name. Off we go. And, I didn't really think too much of it. It was just more of a mission, right? It was an experiment in and of itself, if you think about it. And, one day I cracked it. I ranked number 1.
What?
And
do you remember the days?
I remember it so clearly. I remember opening up Google on a browser, typing it in, and we were bang number 1. I was like, nah, I don't believe it. I asked some other people, and they said, yeah, I can see it as well. And I was like, this is the day. It is on.
Was there a count? Do you remember how many days it took?
I reckon it took a good. I reckon at least. Geez. July, I reckon maybe I'd say 7 months.
7 months. Wow. Okay. All right. What'd you do?
Well,
you win that game. I mean, okay, that worked. Now what do you do with that?
Yeah. Well, then, and back then Google was a different beast and it's much more complicated now. But, things I was doing, I don't know whether they'd be necessarily clean these days. They're more a little bit gray, just slightly black. But that's what everyone was doing. That's what it was. That was the game back then. And, I just thought there's something to this. And then we got penalized in Google, and that was the absolute tragedy. We lost all our traffic overnight. It took 3 months to recover. And we rebuilt ourselves. We set new priorities and new principles about how we're going to do things. And that was the day we went white hat and we just started grinding it out, day after day after day. And what's really interesting about that is I guess that was the day we kind of started making a real business, and thinking, hey, what are we actually doing here? We're not just trying to rank for Google, right? Like, what are we actually doing? And then we realized, what's the purpose of why we're doing this? And what's the actual value we're creating to people, and started to explore real business things. And that's sort of when I think that's that moment in time, right? When you start to go, okay, what's the value we're creating? What's the problem we're solving? And we came up with this idea that, we're here to help people make a better decision in their life, and hopefully in some small way that makes their life a better place, a better experience, and the world a better place, I guess, if you do it with enough people. So I don't think we started from being purpose driven. I'm going to call it out. It was relatively egotistical of me to want to go and, go on my own journey, but hey, creation is creation. And, you got to work with that, celebrate that. And then now that we pivoted, have a much more, I guess, energy aligned to, to the universe approach. I think it's, it comes from a good place and have that purpose built into it. But that, I think, talking about that moment you're talking about, that's probably when, we started, and then we changed the name from Credit Card Finder to just Finder. And I think that was a big deal as well.
So just on when you were chasing the rankings and you had just the website, right? What were you selling anything? What was the actual website constructed on? It
was the same thing. It just compared credit cards. It was a very bumpy website. You can go back in the archives and look at it. It is extraordinarily bumpy. Like it is rough as. Yeah, I just compared and it showed the deals and people got the deals, and it didn't do it in a great way. It did it okay, but we just kept on making it better and better and better. And then, continue to scale that, and, it is what it is.
Yeah, right. And so how did you manage to get the transition into just finder.com? I mean, I imagine that would have been Yeah, I don't imagine that would have been easy, would it?
No, that was not easy. That you're talking about porting domain names over, and yeah, definitely not an easy process.
Mm.
I think, we thought, hey, maybe we can do this overseas, and that's there's lots of people around the world, and this seems like a good service. And so we thought, how do we can do that? Well, we need some more runway. So, we had finder.com.au, then we paid $300,000 for finder.com. And yeah, that was a bit of a journey, and as a lot of money for a cash flow funded business.
Mm.
And that was, the moment when we thought, hey, let's take this overseas. And
so technically speaking, what was the revenue model in there for you? Was there like so people search clearly for a product, and then they make changes on their products? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I guess if you click from our site and you apply, then we get a small revenue or a small fee or a percentage of the sale or percentage of the trade, if it's crypto or money transfers or share trading. It depends on, there's many different models.
Right.
But it's, essentially, we're trying to get the customer, help them with the best decision they can make, and then bring, partners, the best customer who wants their product, and everyone wins.
And so I just, for some reason, I'm reminded of Steve Jobs, right? Screw it, let's just say that, right? You weren't employable, so wasn't that a bit like Steve Jobs, right? No one wanted to employ him; he just wanted to start in the backyard. But was there you and others? Was the journey for you in the creation of this? Was there you, and is there been someone around with you along the journey?
Yeah. So Frank was with me in the first company since 2003, and we've been working together, so 17 years. That's a long marriage. Very long. And we understand each other really well, and just good operators. And I think it's we've grown individually as well a lot over time, and we continue to do that. But I think I think that partnership's really key. And Jeremy joined us as well in 2009 for the new business, which has been really good as well. But, I think Frank particularly for that, 17 years that we founded, the business together.
Yeah, and so you still working together? You still got the partnership?
Yep.
Yeah, great. And what would you? I mean, God, 17 years, like you say, is a long time, right? And even if I think about marriage, so I'm coming up to 20 years in marriage, right? And I think, oh my God, you certainly do know each other really well. Yeah. And I don't know, well, firstly, are you married?
I used to be.
Oh, right. Well, right, what relationships are right. They're hard work, right? Yeah. So what, when you reflect back on that relationship and what you guys created, what would you say if you were to look at the relationship and the partnership you had, what out of that do you think really worked that had you get to where you did?
Well, I think the first thing is we both come from different angles, different just mental models. We have very different mental models. And I think Frank is much better as well, bringing people together on a journey and aligning them, and we're all, sort of smoothing out a lot of the bumps, having a lot of the hard conversations. And he's very good with the money and the finance and analytical and marketing and focus and clearing out the noise. And then I kind of bring in a lot of the, I do a lot of creative thinking, a lot of technical stuff to some extent, product stuff, marketing stuff. I think just separation of responsibilities, that's key. And then respect for each other's ability, I think is key. And then I think underlying all of that is one day, Frank and I, we were living in a share house for 2.5 years. And we, one day we were sitting around, I was like, well, we should write down our values. Like, what do you value? let's write our top 3 values down. And we used to have newspaper because we didn't have that much money. We were living in the share house, eating spaghetti each night. And, we had this red texter and this newspaper, and we said, okay, here, you have used a texter first, and he wrote his values and I used mine. Anyway, then we revealed them and they were pretty much exactly the same. And so I think that underlying values, I don't know how that you can get two people to come together in such a way, but you just continuously align without having to go and, you just agree without even talking. And I think that's probably a very, very key aspect. I never know so I'm always excited what Frank's thinking and the way he sees things. And I bring him ideas all the time. I'm always bringing him ideas and thoughts, and yeah, he just has that persistence as well, just to carry on. He just carries on like me, just next day we're going to do it again. Yeah, we had a tough day. All right, cool. Let's go again. We're going to go again today. Let's go again and again and again and again. And he has that persistence as well. And we've been through a lot of really tough stuff together, like really just not good. Obviously I got, divorced and that was not an easy period as well. Worked through that, and just all sorts of uncomfortable things in life you could imagine. We've done that together.
Well, it's interesting you bring up two things in particular that I want to talk to you. I actually wanted to make this about. One was a post that you put recently on LinkedIn about persistence, and a quote that you referenced based on a comment made to you by a mentor, which is around persistence. But the very nature, I think, that the fact that you bring up your relationship with him and what it was like and to be persistent, I think when we mention the word persistence, one has to assume that, well, that suggests that there's got to be some rocky road that one's gone through, and therefore to be persistent comes up, right? So I do want to ask you, before we talk specifically about that quote and why it's so important or powerful for you, the area of persistence, right? I mean, that there's look, what would you say was some of the difficult things that you did? Because you don't create a business the size that you have at the size that you had without some challenges. That would definitely be tough. So let's just talk about a few of those things, or even just one. I don't know, whatever you want to talk about. But what were some of the things that you found to be the hardest?
Well, I think unfortunately companies get into situations where they have people, you've hired, and it's just not quite working out. It is what it is.
As in staff, hiring staff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's always been a challenge. It's never easy. It's something you work through, and eventually, you can part ways, and it's best for each other. But, I think one of those things, that's definitely part of it. I think when the market turns, when certain things just don't go the way you expected them to go, and hey, you just didn't work out. It is what it is. I think that, we had a lot of challenges. Obviously, we had a lot of challenges with Google over time. That was tough to work through. I
do want to get that one thing right. Let's just pick on one of those things. So I know that issue of, it doesn't really matter which one, either one, think the market doesn't go the way that you want the market to go, or, you end up having to deal with staff that don't work. Either one of those situations. So it's honorable to say you get to a point where, you do realize, well, it is what it is, right? But did it actually occur to you that way when it happened? Like, are you and because some people are, right? Like, some people really are. Like, I'm not, just to be straight. When things don't go out the way I think they should, I am a basket case, right? And I have an automatic, kind of reaction to those things, mostly because, my upbringing, I never had the experience that I had somebody to fall back on. So I always feared that I was going to screw something up. But there are a lot of people I know who are just made for that stuff. Like when things go out, they're the first to go, hey, well, it is what it is. As far as your experience of it, what it was like, when you were dealing with that stuff, how did you find it?
Yeah, I think I probably am one of those ones who just goes, well,
it
bad things happen, and me. And it happens all the time. Like I got all
Right.
sorts of fires burning all the time. Like, when I just scale up, just things get more magnified. And like in a company, like even those really big companies, like, with Google, we got the government trying to break it up. You got people causing all sorts of issues, like internal wars and turf wars. It just scales up really. And so I think that, when it comes down to it, I actually enjoy those moments to some extent. At first I don't. And then
Yes.
I realize,
Yes.
there's probably 2 or 3 opportunities right in that moment,
Yeah.
which I enjoy. It's
Right.
like, I'm always more like, what's the opportunity out of this tragedy?
So great. So great. Oh, I think it's so absolutely hilarious. You go, oh, well, for those big companies when they do stuff, it's like clearly, for one to, honorably say that, right? No doubt. I think there's and it's hard. It can be often hard to say that, right? Because how can one actually say? So I've had that same experience this year, right? Oh my God! Of all years where I've actually finally kind of really made a massive difference, it's been in a year where everyone else is dealing with shit, and it's kind of hard to kind of turn around and say, oh yeah, it's just about a great year. Oh, sorry, leveraging off everybody else's kind of the fact that things are so messed up, right? That yeah, on the one hand, but I think that nature that you have, if you're able to, like it's almost like what you said at the beginning, Fred. You know how when you were saying you were like really just wanted to get your ranking up, you like, well, just test this out, like your willingness to kind of just get in there and test something out and see what happens. Kind of, you're already setting yourself up for what's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah. Well, some of it as well. Like I definitely think this year's thrown so many obstacles at everyone, and I think what's really painful is the process and feeling of change. And I think the feeling, oh, why did this happen to me and all this kind of stuff. I think that's probably, everyone just got to kind of build a bridge and get over it, to some extent. Like, it is what it is. It's not like just one person. It's everyone has experienced this one. Everyone copped them, a big hit. I don't think there's anyone who hasn't. Like, regardless of what the stock market says, there are stocks, yeah, they've gone up, but they still experience some pain somewhere in some way, shape, or form. Not everything's gone the way that it wanted to. And there's lots of companies hurting, and lots of, like, I'd say more companies hurting than less. So we're all in that together. I think one thing my mom said to me, it's not about the problems you experience, it's how you deal with them. I always remember that. And, she's a doctor, and, she's been doing that for 35 years and had all sorts of challenges with that. And yeah, she just dealt with the situations one after the other. And in some small way, I try and do the same. I'm not always perfectly, but I think it's just I try and do it the best I possibly can. And I think that if you just take some action rather than none, you tend to build momentum. And just do one small thing, and eventually another small thing, and then you do one more. And just like, sometimes I remember one of the things, anytime I get into a really hard situation, I go into this mode of just the next action and the next thought. That's all I'm focused on. Like, I can't deal with everything else. I'm just going to do these ones. And yeah, everything else is burning. Cool. But I'm just going to do this next thing, and then this next thing. Then I'll get to those things, and eventually you create the space, and that thing, you can solve that. And sometimes other people come and help and solve those things as well. And, I think from that, you get the new momentum started. I think that's sort of my ultimate fallback place, is next action, next thought.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Does anything keep you up at night?
Lots of things. I haven't been sleeping since April.
Really? What's that usually? Because I don't know. It's just right then present to this thing called, holy imagine. I can't imagine going to bed at night and trying to sleep when you know you got that many people do you ever wake up kind of go, shit, holy shit, what am I responsible for here?
Yeah, I think it's, I think that the, that comes back to focus, right? You can focus on all sorts of little things, and then, assigning responsibility and being clear about it and expectations. And I don't know if there's any easy way necessarily to do that. But just breaking it down, and then, over time you sort of build that scaffolding, I think, of operation. So it's not like there's nothing, it's kind of like held together by a structure to some extent. But there are genuine things where, you're making, say 4 big decisions a year, and they're a summation of a whole series of other smaller decisions, and all stacked together. And I think that's the kind of things that keep me awake, and I've been waking up 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, very rationally, I think, to some extent, like, I think it's been a tough, it's not an easy, yeah.
Is it that your wake is is it more about creation? Like, is it in the head of creation, or is it in the head of problem solving? Like, are you waking up trying to solve problems that you're dealing with, or do you find yourself more in just the creation keeps coming?
I think a bit of both.
Yeah,
right now, a bit of problems and a bit of creation. I think it's, and the problems come from change. Like, we need to change, and always changing and adapting and changing and changing and changing and changing and ensuring we're changing. I think that's one part. And then the creation really are the opportunities where you get those pauses, like when you come to the end of a project, or you're coming to the end of a project or a cycle, what are you going to do next? And I think that's that awesome time to start creating.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. So let's just finish then around the persistence conversation, right? So the creation and the fulfillment of a creation clearly takes persistence. And I think it was it Einstein that once said, or some, it's not that I'm so smart. It's not that I'm so smart. I just stick around with the problem a bit longer. But let's just go to that quote that you said that was the thing that really inspired you from a mentor that you posted recently on LinkedIn, and you made a comment about how it really inspired you. Let's see if we've got it. So you said, listen, I'm just going to give the quote, right? And so persistence is omnipotent. Did I get that word right? I've never been good at English, by the way. I'm brilliant. I'm great at maths. I'm terrible at English. So persistence is omnipotent. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. So why does that stand out for you so much?
Just, I think most of success is people go to the 98%. And then the last 2% is actually really, really hard, the level to get to that last 2%. And most people then just stop. And, I think rightly or wrongly, most of the time I'm the guy who sticks around, to the end of the Monopoly game, or to the end of that long, movie or whatever have you, read the book to the very end, finish it. And maybe I was just taught that as a kid at school to, finish something. I don't know where that behavior comes from, but I used to play chess for hours, like a game for hours and hours, and just grind the person out. And be the last kid sitting there, and eventually they would lose mental agility, and I would make a few moves and
hey, hero. Was it like that? I imagine it was like that, right? I mean, you stick it out long enough and that you're waiting. I mean, I imagine there must be a bit of a heroic experience of that as a kid, certainly.
Who
did you play chess with?
It's part of the game. I don't think it was, I think it was just part of the game. Like you grind it out, mental toughness. And I did that Friday after Friday after Friday for years, and found that if I could just maintain my, awareness and agility and rethink the problem until it was done, then you're the last one standing. You're the one who's willing to keep going. And, sometimes you win because of that. And not all the time. Like I've lost lots of times like that, lots of things, and I was probably holding on to something for too long as well. There's a downside. There's a lot of weakness in it as well. Don't get me wrong. You persist for selling, and actually that was not the key. That's probably, I probably stuck around in my first business a little too long and just grinded it out. But
right.
Hey, it is what it is. And that taught me, and I'm grateful for that because it got me to where I am. I think what I'm talking about is, I think I could have very easily just sort of sat back after a while with some of the things I've done and, just sort of cruised along. Whereas I think I'm really trying to challenge myself. I'm really trying to push past that next barrier. And when you keep going up and you keep raising the stakes, then persistence really comes in. That's when it's game on again.
And so given where we're at now, I suppose, in the year, right? It's that time, certainly it's that time for me of a year where I do the reflect on the year, right? And because, recently, I mean, look, 2 days ago, the US announced that there was 2,800 fatalities as a result of COVID, and it's been the biggest all-day fatality in the entire, since COVID's come about. And, the very first time, so same day, I get a call from my sister going in for a serious back operation. And I just had this immediate reaction of being very angry, right? And I said to one of my associates, I'm so freaking angry, I'm angry. And I just took a look at why I was reacting that way, right? And then I started to notice that usually for me it's about an injustice, and then rather than just get all on my high horse and go down a rabbit hole about all the injustices in the world, I kind of like, well, usually it's because there's something over here I'm not attending to. So what it did for me though is it had me take a look at what was I not attending to with my own injustices in the world, right? And then, of course, that led to, okay, well, what did you accomplish this year? What did you not accomplish? What are the lessons, and what's next? So, given where we are at, is there now something, what's next for you? Or is there what has been the key takeout for you this year?
I think I've learned a lot about change, and also the value of agility, and being comfortable with that, and being comfortable with change, and being okay with that. And then I think I learned also a lot about how other people have adapted to change and how they tend to adapt. And it's not been easy. I think from this whole thing, I take a relatively, it sounds weird, but I actually take a very positive view. And the reason why is, everyone goes, oh, la, 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 this could happen. Well, that just did happen. The worst thing just happened. So, we kind of hit rock bottom. So there's really a lot of up from here, and I'm excited about that. You can't get much worse. Well, you can, but it's pretty close.
It'll be pretty hard, right?
Yeah. Like people literally dying, not from other people killing other people, but from literally a third party. That's a pretty serious thing, very serious. And So I think, you hit this low of, from here, what is it? I've been down so long, it's starting to look like up to me. And so when you do go up, it's really good. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, well, then I do want to finish on one question for you, right? What if this was meant to happen? What if this needed to happen? This is a function of I'm not no spiritual guru, right? But, I've heard many people get to that point where they're in the opportunity of the conversation. They go, well, things couldn't keep going the way things were going. And as a result, this is the universe doing its thing, right? But, whatever the woo-woo about it, right? But if we had to look at it from that perspective, this needed to happen. What would you say from your perspective about what, where you sit in the game of your business and your life and etc.? Why did this need to happen? Why was this really did need to happen for us?
Well, I think, this has happened many times throughout human history. It's not a new thing. It's just that we forgot, people used to really wash their hands a lot in the past, and we just stopped doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we used to all just go to the gym, and everyone would just like use each other's gym equipment, whatever, sweat everywhere, spin around, and just get into it, and everyone was fine with that. We were just like, this world, it's too easy. We've conquered everything. It's so weak, and we're the masters of the universe. And then we realized, actually, the universe went, hold on a second. Wait a sec. And I think there are a lot of positive things that are going to come from this. It's hard to see right now. You know what I mean? I just think it's a natural reset that has been happening. It will continue to happen. I think it's the 50s, or might have been the late 40s, we had the Spanish flu, and that killed a lot of people, like a lot of people. And, my mom was telling me she remembers, people who had polio, and that wasn't that long ago, who just died, she went to university with, and they died of polio.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Well, somehow I'm reminded that a bit like my kids, they will try to get away with whatever they can get away with until they get caught. They'll lie and lie and lie about something until they realize they can't lie anymore because I've actually caught them out, or the other issues around alcohol or drugs, or keep doing what you can do. So it's kind of this human thing that we do, that we'll try to get away with as much as we can until we can't. The not taking care of your health until you have the health crisis, or like the health scare, and then all of a sudden you become this converted evangelist about cancer, eating yourself clean because you've now finally had cancer. I was like, okay, well, you've just spent 50 years of your life not fucking doing that, but do you know what I'm saying? There's this pattern called these serious things that do happen. And I don't know, I mean, like, just seeing that the people, even the pushing the boundaries, the time on the news there's about the number of deaths, and inevitably somebody's tried to push the boundaries called, I'm not standing for this, I'm going to keep doing blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, I think everyone will have their own reflections and their own journey, and the choices they've made, and the universe will keep that ledger and balance that out. And maybe sometimes they don't balance it out. That happens as well. And they just, it is what it is. I think, I don't know. I don't analyze other people's stuff as much. I'm quite focused on my own stuff and trying to do the best I possibly can and make the best decisions I can. Yeah, I'm not great at, I'm not a great politician or sociologist. In fact, I'd probably need to learn a lot more about that, and I could use some tutelage. But I just try and focus and do the best choices I can make. So yeah.
Well, it's fantastic. So just to finish then, to wrap up on us on your views, can you complete the sentence for me? A leader is someone who...
makes decisions and takes full responsibility for them.
Lovely. Love it. Well, thanks for joining me today. It's been fantastic to hear, about your journey in particular. And sounds like there's a lot to acknowledge your mum for, actually. She got a mention in there a few times. And given that often, I think there's a lot of things in there today, Fred, about your leadership and who you are, that you could create an organisation like you did. I think for people, the fact that who you are for people is, well, it is what it is, provides an enormous amount of space for people to be creative and to experiment and to, make things work. And I think, when people can put their head down and be like that, it provides an enormous opportunity for people. So,
100%.
So thank you, and congratulations on what you've created so far. And I'm very excited to hear what comes next.
Well, I appreciate everyone listening, and I appreciate you taking the time, Kylee, to that can hopefully share and be instructive to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.